In 1994, a ranger in northeastern Utah shot a wolf 6 times at point-blank range with a .357 Magnum. The animal did not bleed. It did not fall. It looked at him, turned around, and walked away. Its tracks went on for about a mile across open ground, and then they stopped, mid-stride, as if the thing had simply ceased to exist. The rancher's story would eventually reach the national press, the U.S. government, and millions of people around the world. But the people who lived on the land next to his ranch, the Ute tribe, were not surprised. They had a name for what he encountered, a name they would not say out loud. The Navajo had a name for it too. They had known about it for centuries, and they had one rule above all others: do not talk about it. Tonight, we're going to talk about it. This is the Skinwalkers. There's the particular kind of horror that comes from watching something familiar become unfamiliar. Not a stranger in the dark, as some creature from another world. Something worse. Something that looks like it belongs. An animal you've seen 100 times. A silhouette that should be ordinary. But the proportions are wrong. The gait is wrong. It moves in a way that your brain cannot reconcile with what your eyes are telling you. We are hardwired to detect this. Scientists call it the uncanny valley. Your body knows before your mind does. Something that almost looks right is more disturbing than something completely alien, because it means that whatever you're looking at is either broken or it's pretending. And the thing about the Skinwalker is that it's always pretending. Wearing the shape of a coyote, wearing the shape of a wolf, wearing the shape of a person you can trust. Underneath all of it is something that chose to stop being human. And that's the kind of evil that most monsters can't claim. Imagine this. You're driving through the desert late at night. The road is long, straight, and empty. Your headlights carve 2 pale beams through the darkness ahead of you, and beyond their reach, there's nothing. Just black. Miles and miles of open, uninhabited land, stretching out in every direction. You've been driving for hours. Your eyes are tired. The radio lost signal a long time ago. And all that's left is the low hum of your engine and the occasional crunch of gravel under your tires. The air outside's cold and dry, and through your slightly cracked window, you can smell sage and dust. There's no streetlights out here, no houses, no other cars. Just you, the road, and the vast emptiness of the desert at night. Then, in your peripheral vision, you catch something. Movement, just off the shoulder of the road. At first, you think it's a coyote, maybe a dog. It's running alongside your car at a distance, keeping pace. You've seen plenty of animals on roads like this before. Rabbits, deer, the occasional stray. Nothing unusual. But something about the way it moves makes you glance again. You look at your speedometer, 50 miles per hour. You look back out the window. It's still there, and it's getting closer. Your foot presses the gas. 60, 65, 70. It's still keeping pace. Your hands tighten on the steering wheel. Your mouth goes dry. You tell yourself it's just a trick of the light. Just your tired eyes playing games with the shadows. And then it turns its head toward you. The shape is wrong. The limbs are too long. The body hunches forward in a way that no animal should. And the face is almost human. Your blood runs cold. Every instinct in your body screams at you to drive faster, to not look, to never look again. Because somewhere deep inside, in a place older than thought, you already know what it is. You've just met a skinwalker. The word skinwalker comes from the Navajo term Yi-nad-lushi, which roughly translates to, by means of it, it goes on all fours. In Navajo culture, a skinwalker is not a monster in the way we typically think of monsters. It's not a creature that was born from darkness or summoned from another world. A skinwalker is a person. Specifically, it's a witch. Someone who once walked among their own community, who may have even served as a healer or spiritual guide, but who chose to turn that knowledge towards something terrible. Someone who, through deliberate and malicious acts, gained the power to transform into any animal they wished. The Navajo believe in a duality of power. The same spiritual forces that a medicine man uses to heal and protect can also be twisted, perverted, and used to harm. Those who follow this dark path are called witches, and they're considered the worst kind of evil. Because they chose it. They weren't cursed. They weren't born this way. They made a decision. To become a skinwalker, according to tradition, one must commit the ultimate betrayal. They must take the life of a close family member, often a sibling. This act severs whatever humanity they had left, and in return, they receive their abilities. It's an initiation conducted by a secret society, a final and irreversible crossing of a line that no person was ever meant to cross. Once transformed, they can take the form of a wolf, a coyote, a crow, an owl, or a bear, depending on the traits they need. If they require speed, they become the coyote. If they require strength, the bear. If they need to watch unseen from above, the owl or the crow. But their powers go beyond shape-shifting. They can move at speeds no living creature should be capable of. They can mimic human voices with perfect accuracy, calling out the names of your family members in the dead of night. Some accounts claim they can read thoughts, cast curses that bring illness and death, and even possess the bodies of the living. In the old stories, they're said to dig up graves and use human bones to craft their tools and charms. They walk freely among the people during the day, hiding in plain sight, and transforming only under the cover of darkness. They are, in every sense of the word, the antithesis of everything the Navajo holds sacred. And that is precisely why the Navajo do not talk about them. Not with outsiders. Often, not even among themselves. To speak of them is to invite their attention. And their attention is the last thing anyone wants. As one Navajo academic put it plainly, these are not things that need or should be discussed by outsiders. That may seem unfair, but that is how their culture survives. Despite the silence that surrounds this legend within Navajo communities, there's one encounter that brought the skinwalker into the wider public consciousness. And it didn't happen on the Navajo reservation. It happened on a cattle ranch in northeastern Utah. In the autumn of 1994, a man named Terry Sherman and his wife Gwen purchased a 512-acre property in the Uinta Basin with their 2 children. They were experienced ranchers. Terry had college degrees and advanced training in animal husbandry. The land seemed perfect. Vast pastures, good water, and the kind of isolation that promised a quiet, peaceful life. They had no idea what they had just walked into. The property bordered the Uinta and Ouray Indian Reservation, home to the Ute tribe. The Ute had long considered the land cursed. According to a centuries-old legend, the Navajo had placed a curse on the Ute in their territory as retribution for long-standing conflicts between the 2 people. The Ute called the ridge overlooking the ranch Skinwalker Ridge, and tribal members were reportedly forbidden from setting foot on the property. The Shermans didn't know any of this when they moved in, but they noticed something strange on the very first day. The previous owners, a family named Myers who had lived on the property for over 60 years, had installed deadbolt locks on every single door and window in the house, inside and out. Even the kitchen cabinets had bolts. Heavy iron stakes and chains were embedded at both ends of the home, as though large guard dogs had been kept close at all times. 60 years on that land, and the Myers family had fortified that house like they were trying to keep something out. The Shermans brushed it off. Maybe the old owners were just cautious. Then, they saw the wolf. That same day, as the family was unpacking and settling in, an enormous animal emerged from the pasture and began walking toward them. It looked like a wolf, but it was unlike any wolf Terry had ever seen. It stood nearly chest-high on a grown man, easily 3 times larger than a normal wolf. Its fur was thick and gray, its eyes a piercing blue. The strangest part was its behavior. It showed no fear whatsoever. It approached the family slowly, calmly, almost affectionately, like a dog greeting its owner after a long day. It let them touch it. It let them pet its head. It seemed to enjoy the attention. The Shermans assumed it was someone's escaped pet, an exotic animal maybe, something with an explanation. And then, without warning, the wolf bolted toward the cattle pen. It locked its jaws around a calf's nose and began dragging it through the core bars. Terry and his father rushed to stop it, beating the animal with their fists, trying to force it to release the calf. It didn't flinch. Terry grabbed his .357 Magnum and fired at point-blank range. The bullet hit. The wolf did not react. He fired again and again, multiple shots. The wolf finally released the calf and simply stood there, looking at them. Not in pain, not startled, not bleeding, just looking, as though it was studying them. Then it turned and walked away, unhurried, unbothered. Terry followed its tracks for about a mile across the property. The prints were enormous, larger than any canine track he had ever seen. And then, in the middle of the open ground, mid-stride, the tracks stopped. No change in direction, no sign that the animal had leapt or even been picked up. The prints simply ended, as if the creature had ceased to exist. There was no blood anywhere along the trail, no sign of injury, no logical explanation for how a living creature could absorb multiple high-caliber rounds at close range and then walk away as if nothing had happened. That was the first day. Over the next 18 months, the Sherman Ranch became a place of relentless, escalating terror. The family lost cattle, not to predators in any normal sense, but something far more disturbing. Animals were found mutilated with surgical precision, organs removed cleanly, hides peeled away, and yet no blood anywhere around the carcasses. In one case, a cow was found dead, within minutes of Terry last seeing it alive and healthy, its body almost completely disemboweled. There were no predator tracks, no signs of struggle, just a pristine, bloodless scene that looked more like an operating table than a pasture. In other cases, animals vanished entirely. Their tracks would lead out into a field, and then simply stop, as if they had lifted straight off the ground. During the winter of 1994 to 1995 alone, 5 cattle disappeared this way. Clear hoof prints leading to a dead end in the middle of the snow. No drag marks, no predator prints, nothing. The Shermans reported hearing voices at night, deep male voices, speaking in a language they couldn't identify, seeming to come from just above the ground, but with no visible source. When Terry's dogs went to investigate, they came back terrified, tails tucked, whimpering, and refused to go outside again. Some of the dogs weren't so lucky. According to reports, on at least one occasion, the family's dog chased strange floating lights across the property and never came back. All that was found were small circles of scorched earth where the animals had last been seen. Neighbors reported seeing massive dark humanoid figures moving at impossible speeds across the property. Others described animals that looked wrong. Coyotes walking upright on their hind legs. Creatures with limbs that bent the wrong way. Shapes that seemed to shift between forms if you stared at them too long. Within 18 months, the Shermans had enough. They sold the ranch in 1996 for less than what they paid for it. Terry later told reporters that the financial losses from the cattle alone were devastating enough. But it was the constant, grinding terror that broke them. They weren't leaving a property. They were fleeing. But the story didn't end there. The ranch was purchased by a man named Robert Bigelow, a billionaire aerospace entrepreneur with a deep interest in paranormal research. He established a scientific team through his organization, the National Institute for Discovery Science, and installed around-the-clock surveillance equipment across the property. For years, trained researchers lived on that land, monitoring, recording, and documenting every anomaly they could capture. And they experienced the same things the Shermans had. Equipment would malfunction at critical moments. Cameras would fail just as something appeared on the edge of the frame. Wires were found ripped out and shredded by unknown forces. One retired Army intelligence officer who consulted on the project later said that it felt as though a sentient intelligence on the property was predicting what the team would do next and deliberately sabotaging their efforts. Researchers reported encounters with creatures that defied explanation, including one scientist who described seeing a large humanoid figure perched in a tree, 20 feet off the ground, watching him with glowing yellow eyes that didn't blink. It lay there casually, motionless, as though it had been waiting for him to notice. Perhaps most unsettling was what researchers later called the hitchhiker effect. Some personnel who spent extended time on the ranch reported the strange phenomena followed them home. Shadowy figures appeared in hallways, objects moving on their own, unexplained illnesses affecting family members who had never set foot on the property, as if something lived on that ranch had attached itself to them and left with them when they drove away. The ranch is still being studied to this day. It's now known worldwide as Skinwalker Ranch. But the Skinwalker's not confined to one ranch in Utah. Across the American Southwest, on reservation roads and desert highways, people have been reporting encounters with these entities for as long as anyone can remember. The stories share the same hallmarks. A person driving alone at night through reservation land, movement in the peripheral vision, a shape keeping pace with the vehicle at speeds that shouldn't be possible. 40, 50, 60 miles per hour or more. One account stands out for how detailed and visceral it is. A high school student from a small town in northern Arizona, sandwiched between the Paiute Reservation to the north and the Navajo Reservation to the south, was on a bus returning from a basketball game late at night. The school was small, the kind of place with 80 students total, so every away game meant a long drive through the reservation. This trip was different, though. The school didn't have the money for a hotel, so the team was making a full ride home in the dark. 5 hours on reservation roads. Most of the students were asleep. The coach was asleep. The bus driver had headlights cutting through the emptiness and nothing else. The boy was staring out the window when he saw a figure running toward the bus from the desert at an angle of pursuit. At first, his brain tried to make sense of it. A person, maybe. Someone out for a run. At 2 a.m, in the middle of the Navajo reservation, keeping pace with a bus doing 85 miles per hour. As the figure got closer, you could see it was humanoid. Its face was painted half black and half white, and its eyes glowed like an animal's caught in a spotlight. It ran alongside the bus, hurtling sagebrush and rocks without breaking stride, and it stared directly at him through the windows. The moment he made eye contact, he couldn't look away. He described it as though something was physically holding his head in place, locking his gaze. He couldn't move. He couldn't call out. He could only watch. The figure smiled at him, an inhuman smile that stretched from ear to ear, showing crooked, yellow, pointed teeth. Then it began to change. It crumpled forward onto all fours, still running, still keeping pace. He described watching its bones crack and reform beneath its skin, hair sprouting across its body in seconds. The shape of the skull shifted. The limbs shortened and thickened. In roughly 3 seconds, the thing that had been running like a man was now a coyote. And then it veered off into the desert and was gone. The boy ran to the bus bathroom and vomited a mixture of food and blood. He told no one on the bus. The next day at school, he confided in a Navajo friend who didn't question him, didn't ask for proof, didn't suggest he was tired or seeing things. She told him he needed to see the tribal elder immediately. He did. The elder approached him in the school parking lot, spoke something in Navajo while passing a feathered instrument over him, and then turned around, got in his truck, and drove away without another word. The boy never saw another skinwalker. He also moved away from the area, and to this day refuses to drive through that part of the reservation. If he has to go south, he goes around. Way around. His story is one of hundreds. Others describe voices calling out names of family members in the middle of the night, trying to lure people outside their homes, tapping on windows that stops the moment you look, scratching inside the walls, the sound of footsteps on the roof that circle endlessly, stopping only when someone inside acknowledges them. Among those who live on or near reservations, these encounters are not treated as folklore. They're treated as fact. They're part of daily life, influencing decisions as routine as which road to take to work. The elders will tell you, if a coyote crosses your path in the wrong way, you turn around, you go home, you restart your entire day. You don't question it. You don't test it. You don't try to be brave. So what are they? Truly. If you ask the Navajo, the answer is straightforward and absolute. They're witches. Human beings who surrendered their humanity in exchange for power, and who now exist as something between human and animal, bound to the dark path they chose. There's no ambiguity in this belief, and it's as real and as serious as any medical diagnosis or legal reality. Skinwalkers exist. They're dangerous. You don't speak of them. You do not invite them. For those outside the culture, the explanations vary, but there's one thread that runs through nearly all of them. Whatever the Skinwalker is, it's intelligent. It's not acting on instinct. It's not wandering aimlessly. It pursues. It studies. It adapts. Some researchers in the paranormal community see connections between Skinwalker behavior and accounts of demonic entities across cultures. The shape-shifting, the mimicry of human voices, the predatory fixation on specific targets. In multiple belief systems around the world, demons cannot simply take what they want. They must be acknowledged. They must be given a foothold. The way Skinwalkers reportedly pursue people, matching their speed, calling their names, locking eye contact, it reads like an entity trying to force a connection, trying to make you engage. The intelligence shows up on the Skinwalker Ranch data too. Researchers didn't just experience strange phenomena. They experienced phenomena that seemed to respond to them. Cameras failed at precisely the wrong moment. Equipment was sabotaged in targeted, deliberate ways. One consultant described it as a precognitive sentient intelligence, something that knew what they were going to do before they did it. Even the hitchhiker effect suggests intelligence. Whatever was on that ranch didn't just haunt a location. It chose specific people and followed them home. That's not the behavior of a place. That's the behavior of a mind. Skeptics point to more grounded explanations. The Utah Basin has a documented history of unusual electromagnetic activity and radiation anomalies that could theoretically affect perception and cognition. Sleep deprivation on long desert drives can produce vivid hallucinations. Cultural expectation shapes what people think they see. These are reasonable arguments, but they struggle to explain the consistency across encounters. Different people, in different decades, in different parts of the country, with no contact with one another, describing the same thing, the same inhuman speed, the same wrongness in the way the body moves, the same glowing eyes, the same feeling of primal overwhelming dread that hits before the mind has even processed what the eyes are seeing. That feeling is significant, because that's not the kind of fear you feel when you see something strange. That's the kind of fear you feel when something in your environment registers as a predator. It's a fear that doesn't come from the mind. It comes from somewhere older, somewhere deeper, a part of us that still remembers what it was like to be prey. Before I close, I want to say something that I think is important. The Skinwalker legend belongs to the Navajo people. It's not a campfire story. It's not entertainment for them. It's a deeply held spiritual belief embedded in a culture that has survived centuries of displacement, forced assimilation, and erasure. When we talk about these things, we do so from the outside looking in. And there are Navajo voices, scholars, writers, community members, who have made it clear that these are not things that should be discussed lightly or discussed with outsiders at all. I respect that, and I think you should too. The encounters we covered tonight come from people who experienced something they couldn't explain, and the cultural context helps us understand why these stories carry the weight that they do. But the deeper spiritual practices and beliefs of the Navajo are theirs, not ours to dissect, not ours to sensationalize. With that said, I'm not going to pretend that these stories don't terrify me, because they do. The modern world tells us that monsters are not real. The dark holds nothing the light wouldn't reveal to be ordinary. But the Navajo knew something that the rest of us are still catching up to. Not every monster was born a monster. Some were human first. Some chose what they became. And some walk among us, still wearing faces we recognize, moving through worlds and bodies that aren't quite right, waiting for the night to come so they can shed their skin, drop to all fours, and run. So if you ever find yourself driving through the desert at night and you see something in the dark keeping pace alongside your car, do not stop, do not look. And if you hear a voice outside your door calling your name in the middle of the night, in a voice that sounds exactly like someone you love, do not answer, because the thing on the other side already knows your name, and it didn't come to ask for help.